Welcome. I call to order the Town Council regular session. The time is 7:45 and the date is March 25th. I just want to let the public know that we have just finished a meeting with our legislators. We had Representative Dawson Hodgson and Representative Teresa Tansey, Representative Donna Walsh, and Representative Spencer Dickinson. We've been meeting since 6 o'clock and had a good dialogue with moving things along at the General Assembly. So with that said, we are honored tonight to have 3 prestigious Eagle Court of Honor fine young men with us tonight. And at this time, I would like to bring forward Christopher W. Burke and Nicholas A. Given and Jonathan F. Massey. We have the distinct honor, Meg Healy and myself, attending the Eagle Court of Honor yesterday at 2 o'clock at the Union Fire District, and heard all of these wonderful things about these 3 exceptional young men. And with that said, I'm going to have them introduce themselves, and then they will lead us off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we also have some proclamations. So I'm going to hand the mic if you can introduce yourself.
My name is Jonathan Massey.
I'm Nick Given.
And my name's Chris Burke.
Whoever, we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll let you lead it. The microphone.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and if you can stay right here. I'd like to move new business item 13 to the front of the agenda, and I have some proclamations to read, and at this point we're going to start with, here at the Town Chambers, we have them alphabetized. Nick. So we have Christopher Burke. Whereas Christopher W. Burke is a graduating senior at South Kingstown High School who plans on going to college to study business and marine biology, he is a member of Troop 1 in Kingston and has been devoted his time and energy to complete the requirements of and participate in such a worthwhile organization as the Boy Scouts of America. And whereas in his quest to achieve the designation of Eagle Scout, his accomplishments have been many. His hobbies include customizing 3 saltwater aquariums and designing and building special LED lighting for corals. He received his Coast Guard boater's license at the age of 14. He participated in the National High Adventure Sea Base in Key West, Florida, where he slept under the stars, cooked his own food, snorkeled, and slept in between poisonous trees and mosquitoes. Whereas for Christopher's final Eagle project, he honored the police and rescue personnel in South Kingstown by constructing a pergola outdoors where the employees have lunch, installed landscaping around a granite memorial and flagpole, and performed cleanup in front of the station. The pergola now provides shade and sanctuary for the police who want to take a break outside, and the memorial is surrounded with attractive landscaping. And whereas he has attained the highest, most prestigious award in Boy Scouting, the Eagle Scout Award, bringing pride to himself and honor to Troop 1 Kingston, his family, and to his community, may this be a prelude of his future dedication to a purpose and service until he accomplishes the goal he is seeking. Now, therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of South Kingstown, do hereby extend our congratulations for a job well done and best wishes for success in all future endeavors. And Christopher, we would like to shake your hand. Congratulations. Meg Healy. Next, we have a proclamation for Nicholas A. Given. Whereas Nicholas A. Given is a sophomore member of the wrestling team at South Kingstown High School, is a member of Troop 1 Kingston, and has devoted his time and energy to complete the requirements of and participate in such a worthwhile organization as the Boy Scouts of America. Whereas in his quest to achieve the designation of Eagle Scout, his accomplishments have been many. 3 years ago, he participated in a high-adventure hike 52 miles across a part of the Appalachian Trail, and the year after, he participated in a high-adventure camp in the Florida Keys. During both of these trips, he was required to carry all of his gear in a backpack in Maine and a canoe in Florida. Whereas Nicholas's final Eagle project involved reclaiming an overgrown parking area of St. Augustine's Church in Kingstown, the project required the coordination of scouts using hand tools and adults with power tools and excavation equipment to remove large bushes and trees and to spread new gravel and stone for the parking area. Whereas he has attained the highest and most prestigious award in Boy Scouting, the Eagle Scout Award, bringing pride to himself and honor to Troop 1 Kingston, his family, and to his community, may this be a prelude of his future dedication to a purpose and service until he accomplishes the goal he is seeking. Now, therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of South Kingstown, do hereby extend our congratulations for a job well done and best wishes for success in all future endeavors. Nicholas, congratulations. And Jonathan F. Massey. Whereas Jonathan F. Massey, a junior and member of the wrestling team at South Kingstown High School, is a member of Troop 1 in Kingston and has devoted his time and energy to complete the requirements of and participate in such a worthwhile organization as the Boy Scouts of America. Whereas in his quest to achieve the designation of Eagle Scout, his accomplishments have been many. He has achieved all 4 Catholic religious awards. 2 years ago, he participated in a high-adventure hike 52 miles across a part of the Appalachian Trail. He is a part of Order of the Arrow and served as Den Chief at Aquapog Cub Scout Camp. And whereas Jonathan's final Eagle project was to clean Historical Cemetery number 22 on Rose Hill Road in Wakefield, after the brush was cleared, the tombstones were photographed and the GPS points were plotted. This information was made available to the Historical Society to be placed on their website. As time continues to wear away the stones, their history will be preserved. And whereas he has attained the highest, most prestigious award in Boy Scouting, the Eagle Scout Award, bringing pride to himself and honor to Troop 1 Kingston, his family, and to his community, may this be a prelude of his future dedication to a purpose and service until he accomplishes the goal he is seeking. Now, therefore, we, the Town Council of the Town of South Kingstown, do hereby extend our congratulations for a job well done and best wishes for success in all future endeavors. Jonathan. South Kingstown is very fortunate to have these 3 fine young men. And I would be remiss without saying, if we could have the parents and the families please stand and thank them for raising 3 wonderful young men. Thank you. At this time, Dale, could we please have the roll call?
Council President Whaley.
Present.
Council Vice President McAtee. Here. Councilman Donnelly.
Here.
Councilwoman Healy.
Here.
Councilman O'Neill.
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, Dale. We have the approval of the minutes of previous meetings. We have the work session of March 4th, March 5th, March 6th, and March 11th.
I move approval of those minutes.
Second.
Motion and second, and discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We also have the regular session from March 11th, 2013.
I move approval of those minutes.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Would any council like anything removed from the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Which brings us to our public hearing. I'd like to open the public hearing. This is a public hearing relative to filing the program year 2013's Small Cities Community Development Block Grant application for the purpose of reviewing the draft application and obtaining citizen views on the proposed activities. The local priority list is shown on Exhibit 1 attached here too. The town is eligible to apply for $300,000 in funds for the purpose of undertaking activities that meet one or more of the following three named national objectives. First one is urgent needs. The second is prevention and elimination of slums or blight. And the third is activities benefiting low, moderate income persons. Steve.
This is the second of two public hearings necessary to be conducted by the Town Council relative to the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program. The first hearing was conducted on February 25th of this year, at which time the Council provided notice that they were prepared to submit an application and requested various agencies to submit funding requests that would be in consideration, which would deal with three specific areas to address urgent needs of low and moderate income individuals, both from a housing perspective, from a food perspective, as well as dealing with general programs that would benefit persons of low and moderate income. Subsequent to that public hearing, we've received applications by 12 different agencies. The maximum that the Town Council can write an application for is $300,000. The amount that's proposed by the planning staff for consideration this evening is for $300,000 based on providing full funding to each and every one of the agencies that submitted funding requests. The funding requests and the ranking are provided as an exhibit to the agenda this evening, and I will walk through those items, and it's listed as Exhibit 1 on the agenda. One is, first is the priority is for the Johnny Cake Center. Johnny Cake, the request was for $20,000. This would provide assistance both for food services and for other program elements of meeting the need for low and moderate income individuals. Of particular concern was the fact that there is an ever-increasing demand for food services. The number of persons being served by the agency continues to grow. And in addition to the food that they receive directly from various sources, they're also looking to spend additional dollars to buy specific types of food that are in demand that are not coming through normal food vendor sources. The second item is with the Town of South Kingstown's Housing Rehabilitation Grant Program. That program requests every second year funding in the amount of $70,000, which is then used to provide grants to single and duplex homes belonging to low and moderate income individuals to be able to provide for code enforcement improvements. The third is for, again, the Town of South Kingstown to provide rehabilitation of certain structures at the senior services facilities located off of Broad Rock Road in the amount of $34,000. Welcome House is looking for $4,500 for operating expenses. They are also looking for $120,600 that would be for rehabilitation projects at both the emergency shelter and the administrative offices, as well as several of the supportive housing units that they permanent supportive housing units that they provide within the community. The sixth is the South County Community Action Agency, which is looking to provide a physical barrier between their parking lot and the playground area that they maintain for the facilities on Kingstown Road. in the amount of $5,000. Seventh is the Peacedale Neighborhood Revitalization Group, which is interested in improvements to Peacedale neighborhood, including installation and landscaping within that community center. The eighth is the Washington County CDC, who's looking for operational expenses. This agency provides assistance in affordable housing within the community. The Education Exchange is looking for operation supports for a new program, their Work Ready Credential program. Number 10 is the Community Housing Land Trust, looking for operating expenses for their agency in the amount of $3,000. And the Rhode Island Center assisting those in need is looking for operational expenses. And the last is the Rhode Island Center for Law and Public Policy. This is also looking for operational expenses. That agency deals almost exclusively with the senior population for low and moderate individuals to provide legal services on either a sliding scale or on a pro bono basis based on their income levels. The last element is the administrative cost of the program of $12,000 that would remain with the town for the total of $12,000. Brings the total grant request to $300,000. It's also important to note that the council's application would include the endorsement on the pre-application, which is over the cap, which the council considered in public hearing earlier this year for the Domestic Violence Resource Center of South County. If you recall, the council submitted an application for the $120,000. The pre-approval was provided. We have heard that the funding that was originally requested at $320,000, $120,000 is being made available. And there's also a suggestion that the remaining dollars may be available through the Affordable Housing bond, state bond, and they've been suggested to the agency that they submit an application for the to close that money gap of the $200,000. So we would be submitting the application on behalf of those 12 agencies, as well as on behalf of Domestic Violence Resource Center of South County for the $120,000, which is outside of the $300,000 cap. At this time of the public hearing, it would provide opportunity for any of the grant proposers to be able to come forward and to provide greater support and documentation of their program needs.
Thank you, Steve. Do we have questions here at the town council table? Jim?
Yes, Steve, this is all federal money that comes to the state.
That's correct.
And any reduction with the budget issues in Washington, is it held even with last year or slightly ahead?
There is a potential that there could be reductions in this in that funding source. Again, we can apply for up to $300,000. Traditionally, what we've seen is last year's grant was about $97,000. That was a year without a request for the housing rehabilitation program. So we would hope to be in the, a good year would be about a $250,000 award. I think it's important to note that the town can provide the priorities here, but the state, in their review of the application, can reprioritize and can reset how those dollars or what dollars will be provided to the community. So everything is in flux with the funding request, other than that $120,000, which had the pre-authorization on it.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions here, Carol?
Steve, let's see, number 10, 11, and 12, have we funded, have they applied for this before?
Yes.
They have, all three of them?
Yeah, we have provided support. RICAN received operating support of $3,000 last year, and the housing received $2,000 last year. So those two agencies did receive funding last year.
Where is the Rhode Island Center for Law and Public Policy? Where is that located?
I'm not sure of the location.
Warwick? And, oh, thank you. And how about the Rhode Island Center assisting those in need? Charlestown? Okay. Just wondering. Thank you.
Further questions here at the table? Seeing none, I'm going to open up the floor for any of the people that have applied, if they would like to come to the microphone before I open it to comments from the public. So is there anyone here who would like to start? Please come to the microphone, and if you'd state your name for the record, that would be great.
Sure.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Abby Colby Cooper, and I am here on behalf of Rhode Island Center Assisting Those in Need. We are a Charlestown-based emergency service provider. We provide services to all of South County. Those include a weekly emergency food pantry. We provide housing. We put people up in local hotels while they await placement at local shelters. We provide heating and utility assistance, prescription assistance, and we recently, about 2 years now, bought a new facility, so we were able to expand our services. It's a great new place, but with that, we now have a mortgage. So this community development block grant is a huge help to support our operating costs now that we have increased administrative costs as well as a mortgage. So we appreciate your consideration.
Is Deb Negrelli still involved?
She is. She's at another town meeting for another municipality that we are applying through. So yes, she's still there.
Any other questions? Okay, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Applying. I just want to mention that RICAN used to be located at the St. James Food Pantry in Charlestown. And then they took that building down, but I know that there was a lot of services that were given to South Kingstown residents. Know a lot of people involved with that food pantry, and they do a lot of great work. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Schuss. I'm the President and CEO of the Rhode Island Center for Law and Public Policy. And to answer some of the questions I've heard, yes, we are in work. And secondly, this is our first time. So I appreciate the consideration that you've shown us thus far. What we do, we're a nonprofit 501c3 legal services agency, primarily dealing with low and modest income folks. We're statewide. We have similar clinics. Well, actually, we're operating in South Kingston right now without the funding, and we have been doing so for the last 2 years in a pilot kind of program. We basically, I'm sorry. Can I move that? I'm a lawyer, so I have no trouble being heard. We have dealt with over 66 clients in South Kingston in 2012, 57 in 2011. We are on track to do the same or increased for 2013 right now. We deal in a variety of civil legal needs, everything from end-of-life planning to housing to benefit issues to sometimes employment issues, etc. We don't do divorces, we don't do bankruptcy, we do credit counseling on the other hand, and we do address hardship issues with creditors with some of our senior populations. What we do is we meet on a regular basis at the senior center, twice a month actually. We hold office hours, if you will, from roughly 45-minute period, but the motto is give the client whatever time he or she needs. So we don't rush anybody either. If the need can be resolved in a one meeting, that's great, and people had their concerns addressed, questions answered, and life goes on. If there are direct services that need to be done, then what we do is we arrange to take those services, then we bring it back to the office. And it really operates very similar to any other legal services. We have a great fit with the South Kingston Senior Center. They've got a wonderful group of people, and for what it's worth, we found out recently, we had a meeting today with the St. Martin de Porres Society in Providence. That was a recommendation from Jill Kramer at the Senior Center here in South Kingston, so we're very proud of that. We do a good job. We appreciate any support that you can give us. We're there for our guys, so this is what we do. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions here at the table?
Yes.
Carol?
How many lawyers do you have that are servicing the clients?
We send 2 down here a month, but we have 4 paid lawyers. We have a couple of volunteer lawyers, plus we have other lawyers who I knew in private practice in the community who is particularly matters that we do not address. We'll take our clients as we refer them to them as we would service them, is particularly in terms of the fee. So if we have somebody at a pro bono level, they're not going to charge them or even charge them a reduced rate. So we've been able to network that way. So what we do is we rely on, pardon me, in many ways we relied on paid staff. We rely on volunteer attorneys who work for us. We rely on a network of attorneys. Separate from that, throughout the legal community, we have a good relationship with the law school. We have law school students acting as interns. We have a connection with the Rhode Island Paralegal Association to provide free services to us on behalf of our clients. So we've done a pretty good job in the last 5 years. Is that responsive?
Yes, yes.
Other questions here at the table? All right, and was it Jeff?
Jeff.
Yeah,
Yes.
we appreciate you applying.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
entertaining it. Thank you.
This is a very familiar face.
Hi, how you doing tonight?
Welcome.
Susan Costas, Executive Director of the Johnny Cake Center, and I wanted to point out that with me tonight is our new board president, Catherine Horojak, and this is her first time attending one of these meetings. She took over from Jeff Mellish. Catherine. I was before.
Walk away.
As you know, I was before you a couple of weeks ago, so I know you're very familiar about what we've been doing, and I've been updating you as we've been going throughout the year. So I just came tonight to thank you for the opportunity to be here and also to see if you have any questions on our application.
Questions here at the table? We are very familiar with the wonderful work that you do, Susan.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
And as Steve says, I guess we're at the mercy of the state, and we'll just see what happens this year.
Every year.
Every year. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Chris Hannafin, and I represent the Housing Network and the Community Housing Land Trust, which you have supported us in the last few years. We're a statewide activity, and we provide technical assistance to communities for low and moderate housing. We're a statewide monitoring agent. We have 5 units here in South Kingstown that are low to moderate that we work with. We also work with Washington County CDC pretty closely. I know you know Jeff Marchand from their board, and we work with him on quite a bit of the activity he does. Something else that we did a couple of years ago was that many communities had requested, and I've brought them down, and we have more, a resource guide to help communities if someone came into the town hall or one of the public buildings and needed a resource and you didn't know where to send them. So we provided a resource guide a few years ago. We gave all the communities that support us credit, and we reprinted the guide last year. This year, what we're providing, we did is we have, I have more of these, but I just bought a couple this evening. It's to put out, it's what a community land trust is for first-time home buyers. And then I know that lots of times different parties come into the municipalities, real estate developers, appraisers, and realtors on what affordable housing is, what land trust properties are. So we have done a resource guide for that too to help the communities, you know, just if they have a question, and then we're there. We field calls all the time on any type of affordable housing questions that would come up. So I will, if it's okay.
Great. If you could give them to the town clerk, Shell. Thank you so much. Any questions here from the town council to Chris?
Thank you.
No, we appreciate your application. Thank you, Chris. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Karen Zines, Vice President of Peacedale Neighborhood Revitalization. And we're just here to thank you for your continued support and see if you have any questions about the continuing work that we're doing in the Village of Peacedale.
Questions here at the table for Karen? We're very familiar in
Yeah.
all of the work that,
We are a certified 501c3 now, and we don't have any paid staff, and all of the monies that we get goes right back into the community. We are totally volunteer. There's about 5 people on the board now, and we're looking to boost that board. We have a call out to volunteers and hoping to boost the board to about a number of 10 or so. So we appreciate anything you can
that's great.
do our way.
And we all received thank you letters in the mail from Leslie Chenard
She had a
for her
housing
additional
authority meeting
$1,000. We didn't have to twist Steve Alford's arm too much.
That's great.
Carol?
Where are you planning on locating the latest art installations?
On the bike path,
On the
along the
bike
bike path, because that's been designated the Peacedale Art Park by you
Right.
folks. So we want to continue to do art installations there.
Oh, nice.
So, and then we have some pocket parks that we'd like to do at the corner of Railroad and Kingstown, kind of across from the DeVozy Bakery on the mill property. We've gotten permission to put a pocket park there, some benches. It's right by the river there, so it's a really beautiful spot. Some trees in the village need to be replaced. They're dead. They look awful, and they need to be replaced. So we'd like to get some trees and do some more streetscapes and things of that nature.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, just
Great.
keep it looking nice.
Right?
Other questions here at the table? Thank you so much,
Great,
Karen.
thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is one of the proud parents as well of one of the young men who received the Eagle Award. Welcome.
Thank you, Council President, and the rest of the council members. Thank you. I'm here representing Welcome House. It's as you know, it's a homegrown organization here right in Peacedale. We do have 17 emergency units, emergency shelter units. I was actually thinking about this today. They're all single beds. We could easily double that with bunk beds. I mean, just thinking about it out loud. I don't know.
I think so.
Anyways, we also have 16 transitional and permanent supportive housing units as well. And as many of you may know, in the Village of Peacedale, these houses are from the 1800s. So good news is we did a full inspection on Valentine's Day. We had some facility managers from Crossroads come down. We've got a few contractors on our board and did a fairly thorough inspection. The bad news is that we found some things that we would like to attend to, and that's actually the second request here. It's number 5. We found about $120,000 worth of work that we'd like to get to. So fundamentally, what you see annually is our request number 4 here on your list. It's our operational expenses. We have a fairly lean operation. We do provide case management for all of our clients in the shelter and in the transitional units. And we are looking to expand our network and build community partners with some of the other entities that are actually on this list. So with that, I'm here to thank you for consideration and answer any questions that you might have.
Questions here at the table? Did you want to just elaborate a little bit on some of the work that you're going to be doing, potentially?
Sure. Well, I mean, we've got a bunch of things going on. Right now, fundraising, we've got our Walk for Shelter that's coming up in May. But as far as other initiatives, we are actually looking to expand quite significantly a community garden in our site at the admin building and the emergency shelter right on North Road. We've worked with Rhode Island Nursery Landscape Association, Miss Shannon Brawley, also some folks at the University of Rhode Island to get a concept together. And it's got some great feedback. We're actually working with the Southside Conservation Land Trust up in Providence, and we're going to have some of our guests as well as staff get some free training on how to actually continue to produce food for themselves. Beyond that, again, we've got several initiatives, and forgive me, Council President, I'd like to roll this out very deliberately over the course of time. We'd like to keep folks engaged as to what Welcome House does, and we've got a brand-new board. We do have positions available on our board, and similar to this woman that came before me in Peacedale here, we're looking for a little more community engagement.
Looks great, and there'll be some possibly painting and finding additional spaces and working closer with Domestic Violence Resource Center and the Johnny Cake Center. And, you know, I had the privilege of sitting down yesterday at the Eagle Court of Honor and having a conversation with Ken. So a lot of great work's being done. To really appreciate it.
Right.
Other comments here, questions? Carol?
Yes. So the bulk of the money is going to go to the rehab of the emergency shelter. Is that where the 120 is going?
It's actually dispersed throughout all the properties. So we've got 7 separate properties throughout Peacedale.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually doing some roof work through already committed funds this current year, so that's not included in this $120,000. Ranges from roofs to foundation work, bathroom work. It's just so diverse that we went through. We've got a pretty exhaustive list. We'll see it get metered out in appropriate chunks.
The community soup kitchen is in the emergency shelter.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. Because I see that listed here too as one of your projects.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You're rehabbing that?
We're not rehabbing it. We do have some work we're doing with emergency generator that fundamentally will keep that soup kitchen up and running if we lose power. That's actually part of a program we've got underway right now. We're soliciting bids for that work.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions here at the table? Jim?
Yeah, what's the, how many members of your board currently, and how many are holdovers?
We have 7 members. We have just a quorum right now. And holdovers, if you can consider myself a holdover, about 4 years on the board, and Reverend Berry is a holdover as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? All right. We appreciate all of the work that you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, this is a public hearing, and there's no one else to speak on behalf. As an applicant, I'm going to open it for any questions for the public. So if anybody would like to come and comment on what they've heard in reference to our CDBG grants, now is the time to do that.
One last piece of information. With the council's approval of the application tonight, it would then move to the next phase, which would be an approval or a review and approval that's necessary through the planning board. Planning board is scheduled, it's listed in the memorandum that you had at April 9th. It's actually April 11th that they will deliberate on the application, and then it'll be forwarded to the state for consideration.
Thank you, Steve. I just have a few questions possibly you could answer. Were there others that had applied in past years that did not apply, and did we send out any letters on behalf of the town?
The letters have been sent to each of the agencies that have received funding in the past, so that everyone was aware of it. And candidly, anyone that's involved with services to low and moderate income is certainly well familiar with CDBG. CDBG, we've been a participant in that program since 1985. And in fact, there's been over, I think, about $4.4 million that's come through that program for us. I think what we're seeing more and more of, though, is that the submitting agencies are going to South Kingstown, Narragansett, Charleston, North Kingstown, and what we're seeing is that the state is looking at the funding requests from all of the towns and maybe providing funding support for Narragansett for one agency and not to South Kingstown and Narragansett in dual form. Our concern still is that we would love to see the town's priorities remain those priorities when they get to the state level, but that's nothing that we can guarantee.
And then the last question that I have, this is a list that's been prioritized, so was there a matrix in order to prioritize this?
No, in fact, what we used was the funding request associated with rehabilitation of the Tatro Center. as the backstop. So everybody received the funding requests in the amounts that they requested it, and then we back that up to the 300,000 with the assistance that would go at the seniors facility.
Great. Thank you. So I'm going to go back out to the public to see if there's any more questions, comments, and then bring it back to the town council table. Any further questions, comments? If not, can we have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And would someone like to make the motion?
I move that we authorize the filing of the PY 2013 Small Cities Community Block Grant Program application for an amount not to exceed $300,000 and in accordance with the local priority list as shown on Exhibit 1 attached here too.
Second.
We have motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'd like to just thank again all of the applicants and keep our fingers crossed and wish us all good luck.
Could I
Thank you.
ask for one editorial change?
Steve.
The word development was missed in the resolution that we gave you. Not your fault, our fault. So just have it that it would read Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program.
So amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay,
I should've thought that.
our second public hearing is a public hearing relative to adoption of the proposed update of the South Kingstown Comprehensive Community Plan in accordance with Rhode Island General Law 45-22.2 8B2. In summary, the proposed amendments constitute a general update of the current Town of South Kingstown Comprehensive Community Plan 5-year update as approved by the State of Rhode Island on June 20th, 2005. The update incorporates contemporary data sets on land use, housing and local economy, infrastructure, public and recreational facilities, natural and cultural resources, and demographics, including various data components from the 2010 census. The proposed amendments also update each of the South Kingstown geographic information system maps that support the plan in overall terms. The update maintains the general goal and policy structure and direction of the current plan. And I'll turn it over to Steve or Vin. Vin.
Very pleased to offer initial remarks regarding this process, which has had its genesis going back to hiring a consultant to assist the update in December of 2009. So since that point in time, this has been a real focus of the planning board and the planning department, working with Horsley Witten and a variety of other people and communities in the town and the community itself in developing this plan update document. I have provided to the memo to the town manager a memo dated March 20th, which is characteristically lengthy.
Well said.
Tonight's presentation, we thought we would focus on a relatively brief PowerPoint, copies of which are available at the right-hand side of the small table on the left of the manager, to show you the same material, and it's kind of a little bit of a similar version of what was provided to the town council in support of the work session we had with the planning board that took place, I believe, on February 19th. So we did change it up a little bit, but it's a little bit of a rerun of a television program that hopefully was fairly decent the first time. Anyway, this is the introductory slide, so a nice deep dive of comprehensive plan is a statement, text, maps, illustrations, and other media of communication designed to provide a basis for rational decision-making regarding the long-term physical development of the municipality. The definition of goals and policies relative to the distribution of future land uses, both public and private, forms the basis for land use decisions to guide the overall physical, economic, and social development of the municipality. Basically, that tries to summarize the definition I just read from the state law. The plan update was led by the planning board, and I would really want to make note of the diligence, leadership, and hard work of the planning board over the course of this year. You know, in addition to conducting two public workshops, this planning board, we conducted numerous work sessions on all the elements. We had a lot of editing sessions with the board, and our planning board had some very good wordsmiths thereupon, which I think have definitely improved upon the work of the consultant and the work of staff in putting some of the rudiments together. But the real, the planning board's imprint is very much present on this. I'd like to really congratulate and thank them for the hard work, because it was a big effort, and hopefully the product speaks for itself. I would also make note that many of the boards and commissions in the town have also provided valuable, positive, constructive input into the plan, and try to reflect that in the document as it was forwarded out. The process is guided, it's defined by the state. On the state law, the planning board leads the process, but it's also there's a handbook, they won't know. So number 16 is the one that contains the requirements for particular structure of the plan and follow the annual statute. Our existing plan was approved by the state in 2005, began local approval in late 2004, and that was this fairly slim document. And that plan update incorporated by reference our earlier plan, which is a bit of a bigger document that was done in July 1982, approved by the state in March of 96. Since 2005, we've had a number of other, I think it's 20 other amendments approved by the planning board and town council. And I make note as well, for this most recent update, the planning board, in addition to the public hearing here tonight, conducted a public hearing that commenced in July of 2012, included the planning board's recommendation for acceptance by the town council, and that concluded on October the 11th of last year. And I guess at this point, I'm just to vary the stimulus, as they used to say from my brief teaching days many years ago. Nate Kelly from Westwood Wing is going to walk through the next few slides.
Thanks, Jim. So just briefly, what I think most members of the council are certainly aware of is what this hearing represents is the last step in the local adoption process. So then talks about the positive recommendation of the planning board, and this hearing is the final stop in terms of formal adoption at the local level, and there will be the administrative procedures and notifications that are either required by law or is taken independently by the municipality to make sure that the public is aware of the plan, that statewide planning is aware of the plan, and our community as well. So following the council's formal consideration, and if approval is achieved, then the state is going to take its final look at the plan. It's important to note that we've tried, and I think we'll be successful in heading off a lot of the comments that we might receive in these late stages by the states. We've been coordinating with them throughout the process. We received preliminary feedback last year and worked to amend the plan as necessary to our ability to address those. So hopefully when this makes it back up to the state, they'll be able to look at the work we've done to address their early concerns, and there really shouldn't be, hopefully, a lot of substantive requests after that. So highlights on the update, as Vin mentioned, there really are no major policy direction changes in this document. South Kingstown's been very successful with the model that it's promulgated for several decades now. It's worth noting that I think a lot of folks may have been involved with, or at least aware of, the Healthy Places by Design effort that recently took place, and the planning board worked fairly quickly to try to incorporate the results of that study and that efforts, because it was very successful, and they felt it was important not to wait for the next round of updates to the comp plan to try to get that folded in quickly, and you'll see that gets incorporated into several different elements within the plan. So the overall policy framework is in place, and with that, talk briefly about the elements. State law, under the state law, which this was written, state law has recently been changed, but this is being submitted under the old law. There was a requirement for several of these elements. So you're required to do everything from land use down through circulation, as you see on this list, as well as the implementation. Any community is at liberty to add their own elements based on their unique conditions, and so you see with South Kingstown, they have the independent University of Rhode Island elements, which has been there over the course of several plans. And there are 6 fairly lengthy appendices to try to provide all of that existing data and analyses to support the policies that go with state recommendations, or what the state would like to see as part of the plan. Each element has a fairly uniform organization, trying to make this a user-friendly document. So we have an introduction, talks about the purpose of the element, whether it's natural resources or economic development, and then providing some context with achievements from the past. Summary of the survey findings. We did do a fairly comprehensive survey as part of this process, so the reader gets to see a look at what the community at large felt about each element. And then going into that very basic structure that I think most are familiar with: goals, policy objectives, and the implementation items. So what are the big picture issues that South Kingstown is trying to achieve, and then whittling that down right into the individual action items associated with that.
The first, perhaps the most major element of the comp plan is the land use element. The land use element, as contained in the update, really reinforces and continues the town's focus on the village as really the center of the planning in the community. The land use element that, as proposed, does provide for a continuation of the town's general regulatory model with housekeeping changes, so-called only. There was my memorandum that I mentioned earlier in the discussion of March 20th, 2013, that was provided in support of tonight, details those 8 areas, and we had talked about those in the work session that we had on this last month, but you know, very briefly, we provided a revision to the land use designation on the map, the land use plan map, to reflect open space preserved within the community. We had done a lot of preservation, and this shows it now more specifically on the land use plan map, which the land use plan map is a key component of the comp plan insofar as it correlates with zoning, and it has to under state law. We also did some minor amendments on Rose Hill Road at the north of the former landfill site to reconcile the current GI designation, government institutional, with publicly owned lot boundaries. That's to straighten out that area. That was a concern that had been existent for some time. We also took care of we had a single parcel on Succotash Road that was zoned commercial waterfront but not shown as such, very small. It was probably a slip of the pen in the earlier document, so we have that corrected to commercial shore, which is the land use designation that supports the commercial waterfront designation that exists on the parcel. We also did that similar reconciliation on a parcel in Kingston, easterly of the Alumni Center, which was shown as neighborhood commercial, and we're showing it on the land use plan map as GI, government institutional, and that's a parcel has been owned by the university and utilized for parking for a long period of time now. Again, at the university, there was a parcel located on the west side of Old North Road, with changed it from GI, government institutional, to medium high density residential. This is the site of the Old North Village comprehensive permit application where Habitat is constructing 4 units. So we're showing the designation on the land use plan map to reflect the reality of the land use that's occurring there. And the fact is that was a former university parcel that was swapped out. The other side of the coin there is the Habitat used to own a piece of property northerly of that parcel on Old North Road that was traded to the university for that parcel. So we're now showing that as GI because it's owned by the university. So that was done in 2011. We also have a designation of the former Tibbetts property north of Flag Road to GI from the current medium density residential. That parcel was acquired by the university in 2006. And that, we also expanding the GI designation to encompass the parcel configuration of the former university landfill, which had been closed and remediated. So that cleans up that area. And also in Peacedale Center, the zoning of the parcels there, we have a number of parcels that were zoned for commercial downtown use. And that was done in 1999, concurrent with the Phase 2 zoning designation, zoning process. The comprehensive plan had shown that area as commercial neighborhood because that was the original proposal. In 1999, the council changed the zoning of that area, and now we'd like to catch up and change the comp plan to properly support that. And then the last change to the, in the land use element of substance was, there was an implementation item added to the land use element under to address goal. It was called Policy 3.2 on page 11 of the draft element, land use element, and it was to address the values of a need to protect the South Gateway into Wakefield Village via Post Road, Main Street as follows. The town recognizes the historic, scenic, and cultural values of the southwesterly approach, and then parenthetically, gateway into Wakefield Village via the Post Road, Main Street corridor, and will evaluate, consider, and implement appropriate measures to preserve, protect, and enhance the infrastructure, land use, and scenic characteristics of this corridor and vicinity. And that would be inserted into the land use element. But the map that you see on the slide and the map behind, those are the important aspect of the question.
Carol has a question.
And I just wanted, the parcel on Succotash Road that you're changing from to commercial shore, you're changing it from commercial waterfront to commercial shore, is that what you're doing?
See, what's kind of interesting and can be confusing, the land use plan map has designations, the slide there, that are not zoning designations, but they're intended to support the zoning designation. So it's like kind of a policy designation on this map that that has to correlate under state law with our zoning map. The parcel on
where is it?
It's the Matunic Oyster Bar, actually.
Oh, it is.
That's and it's a little. When we were doing the review of this, we said, oh, and on the map, which is at a pretty big scale, it's kind of almost a head of a pin type thing, and all around it was the residential designation, and I see actually Perry's here.
I know, I see him, yeah.
So this is, we said, oh, we should fix that because under state law, the land use plan map designation has to, be reflective of zoning. So that is truly a house key, because it's been zoned like that for, I'm not sure how long, but for a number, quite a number of years.
Yeah.
I mean, going way back to probably when it was the Seagull restaurant, serving breakfast back in the 60s
So it's
and
been
70s.
commercial waterfront, and you're
Yeah.
changing it to commercial shore.
We're not changing the zoning,
Right.
we're just changing the policy backward. So as a practical matter, it doesn't affect anything.
Right.
Other than straightens out a legal requirement
Mm-hmm.
that we should, not overlook, because we tripped across it as we were
Right.
looking at this stuff, so.
And the other one I had a question on, number 8. You're talking from Post Road, the corner of Post Road and Main Street to the village, or are you going all the way out to Route 1?
Well, I think that's kind of a broad policy declaration that kind of recognized that area as a unique view shed and land uses coming into Wakefield from, McGrath's Corner, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And what is that zone, that area zoned now?
It's variable, actually. Most of it is residentially zoned, but as you come down into closer to Wakefield proper, you do encounter some commercial multi-household at the old Beaches property, commercial downtown at the Larchwood.
Right.
And then from that point, the Larchwood is the last commercial downtown property coming out of Wakefield, but going back in. So I think that policy is just try to recognize, and I think a lot of that policy would be intended to influence how the infrastructure is treated, but also how the land uses and the landscapes are treated.
So would that preclude commercial downtown from going any further than, say, I think the Larchwood is the last one, right?
Well, the plan doesn't support extending commercial downtown as it has been configured,
Right.
going back to 92, beyond where it currently terminates, which is at the Larchwood property.
I'm just wondering how, I think it's a good idea to, the scenic value of that area is important, but I'm just wondering how that affects any kind of growth of the town from the downtown area out, if it stops it in its tracks, or...
I don't think the intent is to stop any reuse or reconsideration or uses of property allowed under zoning. I think it just tries to recognize a unique aspect of the community and provide some policy language that the planning board could look to if an application came forward. They could say, well, for example, they really like an application, but because of the scenic characteristics, we'd like, they could suggest to the applicant that they consider certain techniques or characteristics of a plan that would be consistent with that recognition of that, beautiful approach into town.
Right.
It's not, I don't think the intention is to be restrictive. I think it's more to preserve what has, luckily for the community, preserved itself in the absence of any, particular policy over, that.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm glad we talked about this, because when I first heard about it, it seemed like a really good idea. And then I thought, well, if it's, sometimes towns grow, and you don't want them to grow haphazardly and continued blight or anything like that, but there could be a time when maybe downtown could edge out a little further. It's possible. And maybe that would be a good thing, and if it was done right, it might work into all aspects.
Well, I would point to the fact that since the last update was approved in 2004, 2005, there's been 20 amendments to the comp plan. So if a good idea
Right.
comes along, it's been something that the community has considered and by and large, embraced by making
Right.
amendments, which frequently a comp plan amendment could be companion to a zoning
Mm-hmm.
amendment that might make some good sense for the town to consider, but, we have a process for that. And,
Right.
This update that we're considering tonight is not necessarily a static,
Right.
that's it, because under state law, we can consider, I think, up to 4 amendment applications per year coming from the outside of government. I don't think, and I believe the town itself is not constrained to the number of applications that might germinate in the planning board or through the town council's consideration. So it's, you know, it's not a static circumstance, no matter what the outcome of tonight's public hearing is.
Jim?
Any of those 28 amendments, any of those include zoning changes?
Yes, in fact, I'm trying to think of some in particular. But
And can you do one without addressing it later in a comp plan 5 years from now?
Well,
Can you do zoning ahead of time, a change? I'm sorry.
No, I would say no, because if a zoning amendment came forward that was not consistent with the comp plan, land use plan map, it couldn't really proceed, because the planning board could not make a recommendation to the council that the proposed application was consistent with the comprehensive community plan. So that finding of consistency is an important part of any amendment. And, you know, amendments to zoning are either text changes or map changes. If it's a map change, then the map has to, you know, be accepting, the zoning map change has to be consistent with the land use plan map. So.
And of those 28, I interrupted you, I'm sorry. How many?
It's 20, actually.
20?
And I would think there was probably a handful. I'm trying to think of one.
Okay, yep.
In fact, a few of the changes, Steve's right, that we brought to the council's consideration the last few years were things that were not picked up properly. So, you know, you had the comp plan and the zoning not in sync. So we brought those forward to, there was down one in Esquipog Village that was just, a few of them were Scrivener's errors, which, you know, are very possible when you have, you know, more than 12,000 parcels in the community. I think it's, yeah, it's, you know, well more than that. So there's always, you know, one thing about these things is they can always change going forward as circumstances in the communities require, or a good idea comes forward, which, you know, does happen quite a bit. So
We don't want to preclude something like that happening.
No, I mean, that's why the opportunity to amend is and it's not that uncommon. So, and, you know, I know as a veteran member of the council, you've seen a number of these over time. So we just this next few, well, this slide just shows we incorporated the town spent a lot of time and effort on the hazard mitigation planning, and now this is a component of the land use element as well. And that kind of gets us to housing, and I'm going to turn the mic.
All right, so we had talked about this at several meetings prior to this, but the important thing about the housing element, folks may recall that back in 2004, when the state legislation was passed, there was a call for all communities in Rhode Island to develop their own independent housing plans. So there was sort of a scramble across the state for different communities to get these plans in place. South Kingstown got theirs in place, got it approved as of 2005. So at that time, it was a standalone plan that had the legislative bearing of the comp plan as well. What the state is doing now, moving forward, is trying to get back to its roots with the comprehensive plan being the primary policy document, land use policy document. So all communities are being asked to reabsorb that plan, the housing plan, into the comprehensive plan. You won't be referencing that plan any longer. Those policies, as amended, will be pulled directly into the comprehensive plan. So from a legal and a housekeeping perspective, that was the big change that occurred with this. In terms of the policy framework, very little changed. South Kingstown has pursued for a very long time the growth model of looking at its village centers in different village areas for infrastructure investment and for economic growth, as well as providing housing diversity. So that is retained in this. The policies were pulled out of one document, put into another, but that policy focus remains intact. The element, of course, inventories existing affordable housing in the community and measures it against the state mandate, which still does exist, of 10% affordability. So 10% of the community housing stock is required to be deed restricted as affordable, as the state defines that. Edits were added when we talked about coordinating with statewide planning, so we had pulled those policies into the broader document, made updates as the planning board wanted to make those updates, sent it to the state for preliminary review, and they had several comments for us to address. So we went back and did some more analytical work. One of the several sort of challenges that this plan faced, one was that the comp plan legislation and thinking at the state was changing while we were writing this. The other was that the new census data came out, and there was a lot of new numbers to be crunched. So as we were going through that, and we brought those new numbers in, evaluated that, and presented the data and the policies again, which changed very little, but we still crunched those numbers and updated those analyses.
Just to touch on economic development, this was an element, again, primarily kept the same policy direction that was in the existing plan and the existing update, and broadened a bit, touched on housing issues, touched on infrastructure issues through the lens of economic development. And this element was one of those that was incorporated more elements of the Healthy Places by Design piece than others. I'd say the elements that that brought the biggest changes from Healthy Places were economic development, land use, open space and recreation, and circulation. So this incorporated some of those changes regarding treatment of commercial facilities, regulations about commercial zoning, pedestrian accessibility and activity within commercial activities. This also touched on the role of URI as an economic driver within this town, and opportunities for commercial reuse and reuse of structures and facilities in commercial and industrial zones was a key component. Thanks, Nate. For natural and cultural resources, really maintained the same policy direction. Some of the larger updates came from a data perspective, updating the series of maps that were included in both of these elements. Quite a large series of maps within the natural resources that were brought up to speed with new GIS data. And of note, the two appendices that were in part of the initial 92 plan were brought forward into this update. They were updated with new inventories, streamlined, and are now brought forward into that latest document you have. For the next element, services and facilities, again, emphasizing the village model as the central piece, infrastructure in and around the villages and building around the core areas. Discussing the shared nature of our infrastructure, and low impact development, LID, and stormwater management was a focal point, updating that for some of the new approaches there. And also, as one of the comments from the state was to address recycling rate and solid waste diversion rate, this was something the town has actually had a lot of success in. And we're actually currently at or above the recommended stated goals that the state wants to see in the plans, and that's at a 35% recycling rate and a 50% solid waste diversion rate. And the element of open space and recreation, quite quite a bit of discussion about the policy framework around open space preservation, the role of the Partnership for Preservation in that, and how the introduction covers the identification and evaluation of parcels for open space acquisition. On the recreation side, there's quite a bit of new information in terms of a recreational inventory of facilities, a needs analysis that's included. A lot of new data is also included as part of a new appendix. And from a Healthy Places perspective, there's some updated language around identifying and promotion of programs and activities that would reach out to basically engaging the community to the greatest extent possible in recreational programs and activities, and identifying new opportunities for programs or passive recreation to occur in open space areas where appropriate. And for the next element, I think you've got this one, Nate.
I've got this one, thank you. Circulation. Once again, focusing on the village model. What's been nice to see and interesting for us is looking at the evolution of how the community talks about circulation from the past plans to the present. Pedestrian and bike circulation and multimodal circulation have always been a priority, but the language that South Kingstown is developing over time is becoming more and more sophisticated, more and more specific about what the town wants to achieve. And so the plan really does lay a good platform for talking about that, and especially now that the town is continuing to do their village microplans with West Kingston, for example, a pretty detailed look at how those different circulation elements with the rail and the bus line and the bike path and the desire to move people around on foot, this comp plan really sets a nice foundation for us to talk about that on a deeper level with that plan. And obviously, this last bullet here, partnerships are incredibly important when it comes to discussing circulation, because these types of improvements can be costly, and South Kingstown's done a great job in terms of leveraging investment with the state, whether it be with the bike path or on existing roadways, and with URI as well. So that focus on maximizing your resources is built into this element fairly strongly. Speaking of URI.
Can I just ask a silly question? Why do you call it circulation instead of transportation?
Some people don't think about people when you say the word transportation.
Oh.
Some folks do and some folks don't. And we find that we're more apt to think about all the different modes when we use the word circulation, because we try and move all of these different vehicles and people and bikes and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason behind it.
I think it's also called out in the state law, too, as the title
okay.
for the element. But
See, transportation would be easier for me.
Yes. No, but
When I
I
first
would
saw
say-
circulation, I was like, what is that about?
Nate's explanation is much more eloquent than the Rhode Island general law. I would
Circulation, we think of currency. We think of budgets,
Yeah.
not transportation.
But, Nate is right, by the way. I think, he did allude to the earlier planning efforts that were, the 92 plan, which was a really big project for the town, was and had a tremendous amount. We've been lucky to have really good citizen involvement in crafting these things. And there's a lot of forward thinking that the town, that kind of came from the grassroots, not from the, from the staff or, and from our planning boards over time, certainly, but, that you see reflected in the plan. And I think that kind of thing leads to buy-in and acceptance by the community. And a lot of communities, I would say, look to SK as, having a lot of good forward thinking on things, and oftentimes, which is, a nice affirmation of a lot of the efforts the community has put forth over time in developing these documents. And one of the things unique to our comp plan is the University of Rhode Island element, which was developed in somewhat, Spartan fashion back in 2004 and 5 in our last update. And the planning board particularly spent a great deal of time directing and wordsmithing how this element would come, come into being. So, and the element does recognize the recent growth of the school, which, in some degree is leveling off, but you had the conversation earlier tonight with the university's liaison to the to government about some of their issues, but there's been a lot of, as everybody knows, a lot of capital facility growth at the university, and some really, world-class construction has occurred there particularly over the last decade, and that's recognized in the comp plan. The comp plan also discusses issues related to the potential for further expansion, because the university does have holdings beyond their traditional campus boundaries. The council will recall the whole discussions of the North Woods District and the potential for a R&T park at the university, which, is still in their thought process but hasn't really moved, although there's been some level of controversy surrounding that at the university itself. The comp plan also makes note of the evolving town-gown relationship and communication issues among the university, town staff, town council, etc. And it does indeed, the element does indeed acknowledge the very many positive contributions of the university to the town. I'd like to cite I think the largest percentage of alumni for the university reside, they have a nice little map on, that they provide that shows how many alumni live in each town. And the biggest number is, so people that go to URI often end up settling here, which is, probably somewhat common for host communities, but I think it also, shows that people that come into the university for an education see what a great community surrounds and say, boy, that's where I, want to live. I think there's a lot of evidence to that, and a lot of affinity, so that's, certainly a positive thing. But we spent a great deal of time with the planning board, and I think, it was well spent, and I think that this particular element really came a long way from the real, somewhat skeletal start in 2005. There's a bit more meat on the bones now, and articulation of the community's perspectives towards the university, and some of the issues we face regarding, traffic and congestion issues and growth issues, and how those will be handled going forward. Nate is going to speak on the last element, which is called implementation, which is
I'll do my best. When we talked previously about the goals, policy objectives, and implementation items that are in the body of the document, Vin's correct. There's not much to this. Those action items are pulled out of that text and put into a table. The thought is that it, on the one hand, will make it easier to track, almost like a checklist over time. One of the things that the state is requiring in the new legislation is that instead of updating every 5 years, a town's going to submit a report card every 5 years. So I think that was the thinking behind making this large table appearing like a checklist. But it also does add some detail to it in that it identifies the responsible party or parties for each of the action items and talks about whether this is a short, a mid, or a long-term item moving forward.
Thank you.
And it did add a great deal of length to the document by restating what had been priorly stated in the individual components thereof. So
Only 80 pages, right?
yeah, I think it was about 80 pages, but man, what can you do? So at this point, that's all we've got, but we'd be pleased to respond to any questions the council or those in attendance may have regarding this.
Thank you. Superb presentation. Any comments here at the table?
I just had one question. I'm referring to the Table 1, existing affordable housing in South Kingstown, and at the bottom of the whole table, that's on page 7 of housing element, it says the above table does not reflect Section 8 housing certificates administered by the town of South Kingstown Housing Authority. Do you have any idea how many of those that we have, Section 8?
I think think it's a
Housing
little bit
certificates?
north of 100. I'm not positive of the number.
Sounds right, but I don't know
Yeah.
the exact number.
But there have been legislative efforts over time to try to get those considered by different communities. Those have not met with success, but I mean, personally, I would love to see that being able to be reflected. I know the planning board actually wanted that language inserted because in their looking at housing, they did recognize that those are affordable units, but I guess technically a Section 8 voucher is portable, that the recipient can take that from one piece of real estate to another. So I do believe with the, as the council may recall, the Washington County planners have met, and we had a forum recently about affordable housing. One of the things talked about at that forum was, we'd like to see that considered in the state definition so that those affordable units could be reflected. But at the present time, they don't meet the state definition of the subsidy and term and permanence at a particular location, unless they're what's called project-based Section 8 certificates, and those are tied to a specific location. Most of those certificates are not. But as a practical matter, I don't think they go moving around like checkerboard pieces either, so.
Right. And they still are affordable by definition, but the properties don't have to have the deed restriction of the 99 years, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
That would be nice if we could get that included. I agree with you, Vin.
Jim?
I think I've asked for years that it be included. You could certainly always put that numbers back in if it was portable and left town. No reason why it isn't. As a matter of fact, I think I'm also on record that I think this entire act ought to be reviewed by the General Assembly. I'm furious with the fact that half the cities and towns in the state already were 10% when it was enacted. And then towns like Middletown, Newport, North Kingstown had huge Navy housing, free land, infrastructure, sewer and water, transportation, and they paint the brush with South Kingstown and the Charlestowns all over it. So something's wrong there from the get-go. And I'm not saying to abandon our efforts here, but the goals need to be changed, and the legislature needs to understand that. That's my viewpoint, and not
I
having
think
talked to
that
council.
there's a lot of folks that hold a similar perspective because the law, the Affordable Housing Act, was passed a number of years ago, and there was a commission, a legislative study commission, appointed or established that never really met, and that's one of the outcomes that was strongly suggested at the Affordable Housing Forum that we had in these chambers just several weeks ago. Person after person made that point that commission needs to meet, review the act, and consider the changed circumstances of today versus when the initial act was put into place, and bring that up to speed. And there's a lot of moving parts to that. The Section 8 piece, I think, certainly warrants review and discussion, as well as some of the exemptions that were created for rental housing units for certain communities. So it was a broad brush that kind of brushed differently across the state. It's kind of in line with this conversation earlier tonight about, the one-size-fits-all doesn't always fit all, especially for communities that have unique characteristics, and we certainly have a lot of those here in SK.
Some of this should be coordinated with the state. I think of RIPTA, which I think is very important, but they're losing so much money. They're doing everything they can to, resuscitate RIPTA, but we ought to wake up maybe the fact that it just can't service a lot of rural areas. They really need to confine themselves. So how do we answer the Affordable Housing Act when you need transportation routes? None of it balances. None of it makes sense. And so we all want a strong RIPTA, but frankly, they should be taken out behind the barn at the moment. We can't keep financing this incredible deficit. Yet if they concentrated on really transportation routes, heavy housing routes, and maybe that's the urban core, but that's the only way to keep RIPTA alive. But there's no coordination with communities like ourselves in a RIPTA.
I mean, there was a recent meeting in the town of Narragansett that I attended that RIPTA was talking about their service model. But, at that point, they were talking about, changing some of how they operate, actually mostly in the urban core. And I attended the meeting because I was thinking about the few services that we receive and to speak to, we need to preserve, that, like Route 66 that goes from Point G to Providence, and then the service to Newport to the university, and then, the RIDE program and some of their other affiliated programs. We're in a position of preservation more than expansion when it comes to RIPTA. There has been a lot of RIPTA work with the university. I think that's been good. And there's been some discussion of RIPTA in the university at times about the possibility of a RIPTA kind of a service hub at the university that might address, kind of a shared motor pool that was kicked around. And I think that's discussed in the element. And I think having that investment in place at this part of the state would help to preserve what we have and give it a base to expand, especially if they're talking about commuter rail at some point in time at Kingston in some form and fashion. You have to have the supportive services to make it work. I think the state is struggling a bit now with commuter rail in Warwick and North Kingstown, maybe because of some of those issues, because getting there and using the service and making it convenient and making the public want to do it, those are all factors that play into, the coordination of those things is really important.
Yeah. I was thinking more of housing element, rather than just URI, which is more college temporary, but housing element. But I notice all the new buses now, you can't see in the windows. So you have no idea if anybody's on the bus or not. I don't know if folks have noticed all the new buses have those darkened windows. Anyway, all right, go from there. Sorry, Ella, thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to finish on this affordable housing thing, so I'm bounced back to where I was before. Do you think that the combination of the existing affordable housing that we currently have, which the total is 562, add to that the Section 8 housing certificates that have been administered by the town, do you think that that accurately reflects the need for affordable housing in South Kingstown, or at least touches on that surface?
Well, meaning if you took those together, would that
Right.
represent an addressing of the need in total?
Yes.
No, I would say no. I think housing struggles are more pervasive, not just for affordability, but middle-income people.
Mhm.
The last several years, there's been a struggle economically for many folks,
Mhm.
and that a lot of times translates into strain on housing. Some of the counting, metrics, a word I don't like much, but, is really used a lot. They talk about if you spend more than 30% of your gross income towards
Right.
housing, that you experience a strain in your budget, your family budget towards housing, and that's a federal metric, so to speak. But, it's, different families and different aspects of the community experience it differently. I think housing, affordability issues or housing issues in general will always be with any community. That's kind of one of those issues that is not solvable in total because it's so dependent on individual circumstances and availability of housing resources. So we'll always be working towards a better circumstance. Will the 10% ever be reached? That's hard to say. I think the state establishes it as a mandate of sorts, but I would look at it more of a goal towards, moving towards achieving that, in the interest of the community, rather than saying, you hit that number and then everything's rosy and you can, things change.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
That's a tough one, actually.
Yeah.
It really is difficult. But it's a basic human need for safe, decent, affordable shelter, and how the community doesn't. I tell people, towns don't build houses typically. We don't pound nails, but we can set a policy environment that's more accepting towards, boosting the housing resources in the community for our people who need that resource.
Right, but once you meet the 10%, then you're not mandated any longer. Like in Newport, you can build a project without having to concern yourself necessarily with affordable housing, since they've already met their 10% or above.
Well, yeah, I mean, being above that, I guess, grants you certain latitude with
Yeah.
regards to the state law, but, even, it's a somewhat artificial standard that was, established as a, actually based on the Massachusetts model, if I understand it correctly, but, it's a laudable goal and it's something to move towards.
Right.
We'll be moving towards it in the foreseeable future, hopefully.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Vin. Are there other questions here at the town council table before I open it to the public? Okay, at this time, I'm going to open the microphone. This is a public hearing. If there's any comment or questions, please come forward on the comprehensive plan. Seeing none, can we have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And could we have a motion to adopt public hearing B,
Motion to
comprehensive plan?
adopt public hearing B.
As documented.
Draft motion. PG.
Okay.
In accordance with the Rhode Island Comprehensive Planning and Land Use Act, Rhode Island General Laws, Title 45, Section 45-22.2, the South Kingstown Town Council hereby adopts as an ordinance the document entitled The Town of South Kingstown, Rhode Island Comprehensive Community Plan 2012. I move that we adopt as set forth in the document.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have motion and second. Any further discussion?
Madam President, could I just note a typographical error in the memo?
Uh-oh.
Under finding number 4, it should read May 2005, and then as approved by the state on June 20th, 2005.
So amended
Do we have
in my motion.
Okay, do we have that second? Is that okay with the
Second.
person that seconded? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. And I just want to say, this has been a very long process for all of you, and the time that has gone into this, it's not enough words in the dictionary to express our gratitude and thanks.
Thank you.
Well done.
Good job.
I'll second that.
Yeah. Round of applause. Thank you.
The planning board is very thankful.
I know. At this time, Ken, at this time, rather than move to the next public hearing, and my apologies, I know that we have some people, two items, so if the town council is okay, if we could move to communications, and then I think you'd probably want to speak on the Elks thing? Is that with comments from... Oh, you were here? Okay, see, and I thought maybe...
Sneaking out.
I thought maybe you'd like to say a few words with your letter from the Elks, with the senior. Okay. I want to catch you before you left. The Elks is going to do a function for the seniors. Right. So, do you mind if I just open it for comments from the public? And Ken, if you wanted to just put your 2 cents worth for what the Elks is going to do for our seniors. And then I'm going to move to Eileen Stone with the Partnership for Prevention. Did you want to say a few words?
Excuse me. When we were before the council last week, I had mentioned a couple of the charity projects that the Elks was looking towards doing. One of those we've gotten approval for at the national level, ENF, Elks National Foundation, as you may recall, to send some underprivileged kids from our community to the Alton Jones Day Camp. We have just, I sent in the application Thursday of last week, and we haven't gotten approval yet, but we're hopeful that we're going to get approval. It's called a Beacon Grant. It's another national grant. It's for $1,000. These grants aren't a lot of money, but we take it as it comes. And what we applied for is the month of May is considered as Older Americans Month, which I didn't know, and I'm old. And it started in 1963. And in honor of that, we have conferred with our Senior Citizen Center, and we have conferred with the director over at Indian Run. And they're excited about the proposal that we put forward to honor our senior citizens in our community. And what we plan on doing, if the application is approved, and I think that even if it's not, we will find the resources within our own budget to host a dinner dance for our seniors, which will be on May 22nd in honor of everything that our senior citizens have done in our community and external to our community, as well as what they continue to do. And so this is hopefully an attempt to honor them. We've going to provide for transportation for those that don't have transportation. It will be at the lodge. And for those that physically can't join us at the lodge, there will be members that will be delivering the dinners to those at Indian Run and elsewhere. So basically that's it.
I just wanted you to share that before you left, so much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you. And if the council allows, could we move to Communications 8A before we move on with our third public hearing? Okay.
Yes.
All right, this is a communication dated March 5th, 2013, from Eileen Stone, coordinator of the South Kingstown Partnership for Prevention, requesting approval of their proposed signage to be distributed to liquor establishments as part of the campaign to reduce impaired driving is received, placed on file, and the town council further directs. And I know that Keith McNamara was here, and he had to get his little one home, so I could have moved it up a little sooner, so my apologies. So welcome.
Welcome.
So if you'd like to explain this endeavor and how it got started, and where would you like to see it move to?
Well, I am Perry Rasso. I'm working with Eileen, South Kingston Partnership. And the idea behind the sign was to put the sign up and make it visible in places that serve liquor, hopefully to encourage customers to reduce the possibility of a customer over consuming and then driving. And it also, I think it makes people working in the establishments more comfortable addressing situations that might come up where they have to, shut a customer off. So it kind of enforces. It gives them kind of some support, to shut someone off if they felt they've had too much. But I think most importantly, it would customers might kind of see that and kind of think twice about what how much they're going to drink, and that's really what the idea was.
Questions here at the table?
Yes, sorry.
I have one quick question.
Go ahead, Meg.
Is this going to specifically be in restaurant-type establishments, or will this be in package stores as well, some of our liquor stores?
It can apply to both.
Carol?
Well, how does the establishment go about getting this sign? Do they have to apply? What do they have to do?
Now,
We're actually hoping to coordinate with compliance checks that the police department does with their liquor vendors, which they do under, they've done this before, or partnership members themselves will distribute, it's strictly voluntary for the vendors to, have a sign and to post it in their establishment.
And Perry, you were saying it's more for the patron to, understand that the establishment is enforcing the law?
Well, I think what it does is it helps the patron, it will make the patron think twice. With the summer coming up here, hopefully soon, we get people from all over the place, and maybe they think they're in some some place that might just allow just tons of drinking, and or a type of establishment that might allow that somewhere. So primarily, most customers would read that and think twice, and also people that work in the establishments like mine. It's shutting someone off is no easy task.
No.
And having the support of some kind of signage like that has the town seal, has South Kingston Police Department seal on it, maybe it would come across to the customer more as like, well, don't take offense to it. It's something that we do all the time, or we have to do often to shut someone off, and it might be make it a lot easier for the whoever's serving the alcohol to address it.
And what will you do, just go around to the different establishments and ask them to put it up? And
Strictly voluntary. It's more of a support. I think our we're a tourist destination.
Right.
And I think our establishment that have liquor license, they have an unbelievable liability.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think we
This
need
isn't going to change that.
No, but it's also, it's something that's visible. It's
Yeah.
something that, it's a coordinated effort, and it's really about safety. So that's really what we're trying to address.
I know I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Is this going to be the size of the sign?
actual size, yes.
And there's no disclosure on the bottom. I mean, could folks get confused that this is a South Kingstown town or a South Kingstown Police Department effort? It's got all three of you here, but I just didn't know if there has to be a disclosure here at the bottom. Is this a town?
Hopefully it is a town effort and, a police department effort. I think that.
It started as a coordinated effort between the three, the town of South Kingstown, the South Kingstown Partnership for Prevention, and the South Kingstown Police Department. If you recall, I don't remember when we came, Jeff Allen, Captain Allen at the time, our chair Keith McNamara, and Perry spoke to this at the original meeting where this was presented.
Yeah.
And I know that attending the Partnership for Prevention meetings, I thought that it was stated that it's really something that the businesses work together looking for, because sometimes it's a patron who visits one establishment and then moves to another establishment. And I think that the businesses were looking for some partnership to have something uniform to work together. And it was presented in front of the town council. And then we wanted you to come back to us with some kind of a placard with the verbiage, as well as, elements of size. So you have done what, we have asked, and we're here further discussing it. So.
Who will
go ahead.
Who will be calling on the establishments?
I feel that, either to post the signage?
Yeah. I mean, is our letter going to go out, or an email to all of our restaurants?
I mean, formally, I don't know. We did discuss, actually, friends with a lot of these people and know a lot of the people I had just envisioned myself walking into the establishments and saying, hey, check this out, would you hang it up somewhere? And, you know, and some ideas were also to maybe bring an officer along or have an officer actually do it, which might get a lot more traction and more people to display the sign.
The South Kingstown Police Department has worked very, very hard to establish good relationships with the liquor vendors in our community, with the partnership. And that has been something that's been in existence for some time. For the partnership's perspective, we often send out communications, particularly around this time of year, to the liquor establishments and around, you know, it's prom time, URI spring, whatever, just to be aware. We could mention some of this. You know, we talk about some of the tips training sometimes that are available within the area that they might want to access for their employees. So that's something else that can be mentioned, is the signage.
I guess one of my concerns was if you're going to come around with one of our officers, that's not making things really quite voluntary. I'm really concerned about that aspect of it.
I can understand that.
Very concerned.
Well, when our law, and I think Chief Vespy can speak to this as well, when the law officers, they do compliance checks regularly, every single year.
You know.
And basically, they have a very, very good relationship with the liquor vendors. And coercion is not part of any part of this initiative that we have for them to accept the sign. It's strictly volunteer.
Carol?
I was just wondering, I mean, I know some of the, you know, establishments have had problems where somebody may have drank before they got to the restaurant. And maybe you wouldn't know, maybe a bartender might not notice right off the bat. But in many events, I've seen it happen where they say to someone, you know, you better not be driving, we'll get you a ride, or we'll make sure you don't drive. Is that part of this too? No. Because sometimes you need to get the person home without letting them drive is another option.
That really is a whole nother discussion.
It's a whole nother story. Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, we're committed to the elimination of impaired driving for the safety of our community. That's part of what you're saying here. You're not going to let anybody actually drive. Not only are you not going to overserve, but you're going to watch that they don't get behind the wheel of a car. And I think that encompasses that also. I don't think that you mean to encompass that, but I think the sign says that, because you're committed to the elimination of impaired driving.
Right.
So that's even in the case where somebody may have, and I'm not saying it's, you know, it does happen, let's face it, is maybe shouldn't be driving and you know it before they leave the establishment. So it could encompass a whole, maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and only because I've been at some of the meetings, I don't think that it was read that way, but there have been many conversations with the lack of transportation.
Oh, right, I think that's
You
an
know,
issue.
taxis and
especially
things
around-
like that, and that is a big concern that we don't have. And I know that the businesses have offered, they've driven people home, they do all of that. But I don't think that was the intent with any of the conversations that I've had. It's more to, you know, it's not to prepare or give them a ride home. It's to try to be proactive before it gets to that point. And I think that the businesses, you know, supported one another in coming up with this. And I think that it was generated with some of the deaths that we had in town to try to improve and make our community a little more safe.
I'm not arguing with the intent, Ella. It's all good intentions. And I'm just saying, it does say eliminate impaired driving. So if you see someone who's impaired, you really shouldn't let them drive. I mean, isn't that what that says? Besides saying what you think it says.
Was that part of any
Throwing it out there.
conversations at the meetings?
No, this was really a beginning of that whole process. Certainly, we talk about the transportation issue. That's a much, much bigger issue than even the partnership.
Oh, right. I agree with you.
And this was a beginning, and it's a way to address some of the fatalities that we've had in the town. it was also a way to support the liquor vendor owners, to give them some sort of support from both the partnership, or the three organizations with the seals on the certificate. It's not, and I guess, to address Jim further, it's to really make sure that the spirit of that the message is intent, that's followed through, all the way through. We recognize that we are a tourist destination. We have, it's part of who South Kingstown is, but at the same time, we need to balance it with the safety piece of it. And so this was a beginning to start addressing that, working with the liquor vendors, not against them.
I'm not saying that you're working against them. I just think it says more than you may think it says. I don't know.
You mean,
It's a small sign, but, you're committed to the elimination of impaired driving. I mean, that's what you're saying. And that can take many avenues. Not just don't let somebody drink too much. It could also mean give somebody a ride home if they do.
well, that sometimes that happens,
Right.
but, I mean, it's simply to hopefully reduce the occurrence. We obviously not going to be able to, maybe people might have had too much and there's no way we're ever going to be able to tell, or maybe someone hasn't had anything at all, and it's a medical condition, which is something that has
Right.
happened and creates it's a very, very embarrassing thing when you address it because you think they've had too much to drink, and that wasn't the case at all. And this signage is something that will make it easier for me or the other people working there to say something. And if there isn't, someone who hasn't had anything to drink at all, and they just have a condition that would make someone think they've had too much to drink, then they might understand more, because this is what we do here. It's not designed to say that we're going to, tackle someone on the way out to the parking lot if we think they had too much, because we're simply not going to know. It's just something that is going to make someone think a little bit more, hopefully, before they have too much.
I think Meg had a question.
I can honestly say that I can see where Carol's connotation came from. If somebody is at your establishment and they are under the influence already, and then they see something like this, the perception may be, okay, it doesn't matter if I am impaired or how impaired I am, because they're going to give me a ride. And that could be sending a very mixed message. Maybe something a little bit more simply stated: this establishment is committed to your safety and the safety of our overall community. Please drink responsibly. Or something like that, or we enforce responsible drink, something.
I think that would be more to the point, and it won't corner you into an intersection of going two different ways.
But
You're not saying, and Meg, that's very good.
That is good.
Because you're not saying drink responsibly, you're saying don't drive.
And that never came up in any of the conversations, so that's...
That's what you're saying.
Yeah. So, Meg, could you give that verbiage?
Oh, now?
Could you?
The only thing I was, oh, yeah, I can do that.
I know.
But a piece of paper.
I mean, never was that.
It sounded good.
I just think that the overall
It's just-
perception there is you're not advocating
Right.
to somebody the fact that it may be okay to have that extra drink, because in case I do, somebody's going to give me a ride home. And I'm
It
telling you,
says
most
that.
people wouldn't think that way, but if you're in an establishment and you've had a few drinks already, how much are you really taking in anyway? So they might just point to that sign and keep saying somebody's going to give me a ride home, so.
And to be honest with you, the verbiage here had 26 words in it, and it was cut down to, this 13, so, but nowhere during any of the conversations with probably 3 or 4 meetings for the Partnership for Prevention was it interpreted that way, so this is good. They will go back and probably change the verbiage.
I think that drink responsibly thing, just a few words,
that down?
whatever you just said,
I
Meg,
just,
that was very good.
This
And
establishment.
that puts it back on the patron and not on the establishment. I mean, it's both, but.
And that's where we want it.
Right.
Yeah, because this isn't a legal, you don't want it to be somebody interpreting you should have given them a ride after they go home and hit somebody on the way home.
So does that mean it will have to go back to the board, the Partnership for Prevention, for approval of this verbiage, and then it will come back to our table for a final vote? We all in agreement with that?
What was the wording?
She's writing it down,
I'm
and
gonna
we're
write
going
it
to give
down
it
for
to
you,
you.
Harry.
Oh, got it, thank you.
We're going
She's
to give you.
Good girl, Mag.
We'll get it done
So the
yet.
next meeting of the Partnership for Prevention,
I
the
think
second
that would
Thursday,
be-
you're an ex officio member, so.
No, I know, now I am a member, but just let me know.
While Meg's writing that out, I do have a concern here because I see our town, South Kingstown sealed. Does that mean any town council member, Steve Alford, Vin Murray, can we go out and with a member of the partnership visiting the establishments or a member of the police department? I'm very uncomfortable that there be any
Jim, would you rather?
visual support.
Would you rather it just be the partnership that does this?
Yes, very much so. Or other organizations. I just am
That's fine.
very uncomfortable because I don't find it then voluntary.
That's fine. That's fine. That's not a problem.
I would like that town seal, so maybe we gotta have a conversation.
No, she's got it. She won't give it to you.
Oh, you want it? I'm sorry.
This establishment is committed to your safety and the safety of our overall community. Please drink responsibly.
We can put something else in the last line, but.
Take
1,
maybe
2, 3,
overall.
4, 5,
You could
6.
take overall out, that would take one word down.
Safety of our neighbors.
To our community, yep, neighbor.
Take overall
I
out.
think it's less than what the original.
17, no, this is more. A few more.
Take overall out, there's one left.
This establishment is committed to your safety and the safety of our community. Please drink responsibly.
You could say the safety of our citizens.
Safety of our citizens instead of community? Citizens?
Maybe citizens or community, they're all good.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to put it, and I'm going to give this to you,
Really?
all right? Do we need a further discussion with the town seal and the police department seal? I'm going to give this to Dale to give to.
Why don't we
I like
see
the
it
3
as-
seals, but.
I
that's
don't
fine.
have a problem with the 3 seals.
No,
But
I don't.
I guess the one
Not
thing
with
that may, Jim made a point, the one thing that may come is if the police officers are delivering it, they may not think that it's so much of a voluntary.
Right.
Yeah, I think the last plan was for Perry to be delivering it, correct?
I mean, I thought I
That's
would
my
bring it to
understanding.
the local places. I know a lot of the people there, so it might be easy. I mean,
No, no, no.
Perry's
just
gonna
an
do it.
idea. That wasn't, it wasn't hinging on that or anything.
All right, we've got to come to some resolution with the 3 seals.
I don't know. Can't we see what it says first? Is that what it's going to say?
I'll do another
And then bring it back a
Yeah.
third time? Okey dokey. All right.
Thank
We
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the public hearing. How's that? Our third public hearing. This is a public hearing relative to amending the fiscal year 2012-13 position allocation to pay schedules as adopted June 11th, 2012, to incorporate the position of Finance and Accounting Administrator, grade 13, as shown in Exhibit 2, attached here too. Steve?
I've provided the council with a memorandum dated March 6th. Within that memorandum, I've made a recommendation that we create a new administrative position with the title of Finance and Accounting Administrator, and that it be placed in grade 13. I've noted that what I'm looking at this point is restructuring within my finance department. There was an announcement of the retirement of the existing town accountant, and we began the process for the replacement of that position as the town accountant. Subsequent to the advertising of the position, the finance director, Alan Lord, advised me that just shy of 33 years, he would be leaving South Kingstown's employ by the end of the fiscal year. That gave me pause in terms of reviewing the financial structure that we have and the duties and responsibilities vested within the finance director's position. In reviewing that, I felt that there was a necessity to provide greater responsibilities and duties within the town accountant position, which would require the upgrading of that position. I'm not suggesting that we take away the town accountant position. That may be a job that is necessary at a later time. What I'm suggesting is that there's a necessity to really provide for a second professional level position within finance for a couple of reasons. Major reason is that with the development of the government information system that's going to be instituted over the next 18 months, we're going to need assistance at the professional level for the implementation as well as the data conversion for introduction of that system. Secondly, I need more assistance at the level dealing with not just salary information, but with benefits management. As benefits become a much more expensive component of the employment program, we need to be able to look at various options in terms of dealing with benefits. One of the major benefit costs is associated with health care. I need to be able to deal in accord with HIPAA regulations to deal with looking at what are the financial options for dealing with those type of benefit levels in the future, as well as how we deal with labor contracts. I want to incorporate that into this, this position. I also want to be able to do some modeling as far as how we can better reduce or potentially reduce OPEB liabilities in the future in terms of restructure of benefits. That is going to take focus of both the finance director and this administrator role. And this isn't the only change. I will be coming to you also in the near future with an upgrade of the existing position within the IT field. Right now we have two positions. One's been unfilled for 2 years, waiting for us to come up with the government financial management system. What I want to do is to vest responsibilities for an IT administrator that would be with primary responsibilities for the implementation of the software. That'll have a couple of pay grade increases that'll be associated with it, but that's also going to be necessary for me to be able to restructure how the finance department and the IT department work together. Overall, what we want to do is to be able to get that financial information system in a position where we're also going to have better data sharing between the town and the schools as far as working under one data system, even though there'll be two separate charts of account. So this is the first step in that process in terms of the development of a restructure within the financial area. Is it something that we could have done several years ago and probably would have done, other than the fact that we've got a long-term employment with the person that's in that job who's highly competent and has been able to manage a number of those functions in accord with my needs. But looking forward, I want to be able to bring new people in that will have opportunity for learning curve and to become conversant with our documentation and the level of service that we provide. I don't want to do that with a single person. When we went through the initial process, looking for the recruitment on the town accountant position, I did find an applicant that I thought would meet the terms and conditions associated with the new position. And I have made an offer on that job, and that person is willing to accept the job and begin working for the town of South Kingstown. So under full disclosure, I have offered the position to Patricia Sunderland. She is currently in the capacity as the finance director in the town of North Kingstown. I am not considering her independently for the replacement of the finance director's job, but certainly she'd have the opportunity to apply for that if that was her desire at a later time. We are currently doing recruitment for the finance director's replacement, and I've also initiated the initial recruitment process to begin looking at the IT administrator's role. So tonight, the only thing that's before you is the creation of the administrative position of finance and accounting administrator, and it would be stationed in grade 13 within the town's position classification and pay plan. I'd be glad to answer any questions council may have on this initiative.
Thank you. Any questions here at the town council table? Carol?
Steve, what pay grade was the town accountant, the previous position?
The town accountant was, well, it's in the schedule
Last page.
itself.
Good question.
I don't see it on there.
I'm sorry, the town accountant was a union position, so it's not in that pay scale.
Oh,
I believe that the salary range was in the 48 to 54 range.
and so we're eliminating that position at this point?
No, I'm not eliminating the position. The position will stay within the position classification for that union position within the union contract. We would then, at a later time, if dollars were appropriated for that position, we would be able to fill that position. If we were to look at sometime in the future having joint services with the school system, that may be a position that would come back into appropriation funding. I'm not suggesting that that's going to happen. What I'm saying is it would be a slot that's open, yet I'm not going to be recruiting for that slot at this point, nor would I have the dollars necessary to bring a person on.
So we're going to leave that vacant, that position?
correct.
Okay.
Other questions here at the town council table? Seeing none, I'm going to open the microphone to any questions from the public. Seeing none, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and can we have a motion, please?
I move approval of public hearing C for the amending the fiscal year 2012 to 2013 position allocation to pay schedule as adopted June 11, 2012, to incorporate the position of finance and accounting administrator, grade 13, as shown on Exhibit 2, attached here too.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Which brings us to Communication C. This is a communication dated March 7th, 2013, from Channing Jones, Program Associate, Environmental Rhode Island, concerning the group's effort to protect Narragansett Bay from pollution by banning plastic checkout bags in Rhode Island, is received, placed on file, and the Town Council further directs.
I read the resolution. I just think I need more information about that.
I think a couple towns have done this, Steve, but do you know if that is even legal? I mean, where are we on this, baby?
Barrington did it, right?
Barrington, yeah.
I think what I would say to you is that the letter that you got asked you to do one of two things, or both. And one was to be supportive of a ban statewide, or to look at a local ordinance development. I'm not aware that there has been any legislation introduced on a state level that would provide the ban on the plastic bags, but I do believe that that it's going to be difficult on communities to individually deal with the issue. I think this is something where, God forbid, I would say there needs to be a uniform state regulation, but it may well fit the mold here. But I'm not aware that this group has in fact requested that such state legislation be introduced. If they do, then certainly we could bring that to the council.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to know how we would implement such a thing and what the markets and, you know, how they would begin to address this. It's like recycling, you know, it happens slowly over time. I mean,
Well, in Barrington, there was acceptance by Shaw's, which was the large grocery store, that was willing to participate in that program. And I think that there was a lot more outreach done with the business community before the council made final decisions on the adoption of that ordinance.
well, that's exactly what I was thinking. We need to talk to the businesses before we'd ever even go a next step with this.
Right. So we're going to place it on file?
I would
Good with
suggest.
that? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
I move that we place Communication C on file.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next is Communication D. This is a resolution adopted March 13th, 2013 by the Newport City Council requesting the General Assembly to amend Rhode Island General Law 42-46 open meetings to establish procedures allowing municipalities to permit members of advisory boards and working groups under certain circumstances to remotely participate in their meetings by video conferencing is received, placed on file, and the Town Council further directs.
You know anything about this, Steve? I mean, what
I don't
started them
see
on
how
this
would
anyway?
at all be possible.
And the money involved with video conferencing, I think, is just...
I think that what's being asked here is so specific, I really don't see how you would, there would have to be far better definition as to what is an advisory group, and how you would limit it. Is it limited to twice a year, as they talk about?
Yeah.
Or is it limited to twice each of the members of the committee? I assume that they have people that they want on a committee that aren't available year-round.
They're living somewhere else.
Another state.
They may be snowbirds, that all I know that are only here part-time, but I've never seen anything like this one before.
No.
Can we have a motion? We're going to place it on file?
I move that we place Communication D on file.
Any further, do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Jim?
Can you imagine what's going to count as a quorum?
Oh, you have to have a quorum. They said you have to have a
Yeah,
quorum
yeah,
in
but-
a
but-
resolution
but will a vote
before you
count?
get the person on the phone.
But can his vote count, or is simply advisory, and that's all he is?
I
from-
don't know.
From vacation, all right.
I'd love to know what prompted it. I mean, it had to be a specific incident that really prompted it.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take the vote? Ready? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Communication E is a communication dated March 15th, 2013, from Dan Beersley, Executive Director of Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, requesting adoption of resolutions in opposition to General Assembly bills Senate 365, Senate 777, and House 5699 that would mandate contract continuation, which is the evergreen legislation, and General Assembly bills Senate 364, House 5340, and House 5389 that would mandate binding arbitration for teacher and other school employee contracts is received, placed on file, and the Town Council further directs. Steve?
As noted in Mr. Beardsley's correspondence, there are 6 different bills dealing with binding arbitration and dealing with contract continuation. In fact, one of the bills, 5389, does both. What Mr. Beardsley, as the lobbyist on behalf of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, is asking the various cities and towns to do is to provide specific reference to all 6 of the bills, since if there's a hearing and you've only referenced a single bill, the question would be whether the council was taking a posture against that bill, even if it was a companion bill of one which had verbatim language. So the request was that since the council has already taken a position in opposition to both binding arbitration and to the evergreen provisions of labor contracts, would the council be willing to pass a single resolution that addressed all 6 of those bills? I have reviewed all 6 of the bills. Those dealing with binding arbitration would in fact be specifically available to teachers and non-certified teaching staff, ones also with municipal employees. It would provide for the binding arbitration on monetary issues related to each of those labor contracts. I think it's very, very important for the communities to take a position. As we all know, teacher contracts represent the single largest use of property taxes in the community. Not just the school budget, but the overall contract. For us to have a property tax levy really under the control of a third party, that's a disinterested third party to South Kingstown's needs, I think is a very dangerous proposal and one that should be fought as vigorously as possible.
Questions here at the table? Jim?
I agree totally with Steve. I think the school committee has the same position. I think as many different avenues to convince our General Assembly members is the way to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Jim. So Steve, this goes one step further than the one we just signed on with the school committee. It actually goes to the specific bills.
It'll reference all 6 of the bills that pertain to either of those 2 issues.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We're ready for a motion.
Just let me clarify one thing, too, is that one of the bills, that 5389, was dealing not just with binding arbitration, but was also dealing with a provision to extend the date for termination of teachers from the March 1st to April 1st. The council took the position endorsing the provision which would take it from March 1st to June 1st. So both of the provisions within 5389 are not things that I would suggest that you support, because we're certainly not looking for half of that bill. And also, I think that the June 1st date is what the school committee had been looking for, not the April 1st.
Okay.
Well, we did just support that one, right?
You did support
The June
that.
1st, right, from March 1st to June 1st, moving the date. And this, we're not addressing that at all on these.
No, what I'm saying to you is that this bill 5389, the sponsor may say to you, you're opposed to extending the contract or the employment notices to teachers to be laid off. Your answer would be you're not, because you've already endorsed that, which would take it to June 1st.
Well, all set. I move that we support the resolution proposed by Dan Birdsley from the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns regarding opposing the contract continuation legislation and the 3 bills that it cites, and also opposing the binding arbitration legislation along with those 3 legislative bills that it cites. I move that we support their opposition.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Which brings us to comments from interested citizens. Seeing none, I'm going to move to the town manager's report.
I have nothing specific to report on this evening. I'd yield the floor to the solicitor.
Town solicitor's report.
Nothing specific this evening.
And I believe we have no appointments. Which brings us to page 8, new business D, I believe. Okay, new business D is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Central Dodge Incorporated, 191 New State Highway, Raynham, Massachusetts, for 6 2013 Dodge Charger V8 police package vehicles, 2 Dodge Charger V8 police administrative package vehicles, and 1 2012 Dodge Charger V8 police administrative package vehicle in a total amount not to exceed $216,107,000, including trade and allowance and equipment transfer installation, and is further directed and described in a memorandum from the police chief to the town manager dated March 14th, 2013, and entitled Bid Recommendation Police Vehicles.
The chief's memo presents the purchase arrangements that we're looking at with revising what we had initially planned to do in the 12-13 year and what we plan to do in the 13-14 year. With the purchase of those 8 vehicles, we'll be spending the $216,000. A portion of that comes from an insurance settlement on one of the vehicles that had been totaled. We'll still be within about $3,000 of the dollars that are appropriated within the 2 years for the purchase of those 8 vehicles. I would note that the authorization that you provide, what we'll do is to set up 2 different purchase orders, because the 13-14 year purchase order wouldn't be executed if the budget was not finally adopted by the council for the 13-14 year and the monies that are necessary to support these acquisitions. But the revised plan makes sense, dealing with both the accidents that we've had with different police vehicles and the actual mileage that we're tracking. With the police vehicles, just like with all of our municipal vehicles, we do not trade until we need to trade them in. So if, in fact, we can get an extra couple of months, we will get the extra couple of months before we do trade those vehicles in. Sometimes we'll have money appropriated in a fiscal year, and we'll hold those dollars over till the following year if, in fact, there's still life within those vehicles before they need to be replaced. So I fully support the recommendation as presented in the chief's memo and ask council's approval as presented.
Thank you. Questions here at the table? Could we have a motion, please?
I move approval of new business item D.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. New business item E is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Atlas Pyrovision Productions, P.O. Box 498, Jaffrey, New Hampshire, for the 2013 4th of July fireworks display in accordance with all bidding specifications, an amount not to exceed $17,900, and is further described in a memorandum from the Director of Leisure Services to the Town Manager dated March 20th, 2013, entitled Recommendation for Bid Award 4th of July Fireworks Display. Steve.
It's always good to have fireworks on our agenda of this nature.
Oh.
That was good.
One bid was received, $17,900 from Atlas. Atlas has served us 16 of the past 17 years and 16 of the years that was successful. So I would recommend the council award the contract as presented. Overall, this contract will provide for 2,249 shells to be blown up for the 4th of July celebration.
Launched and then blown up.
Launched first, hopefully.
If I can just add my 2 cents, the music that we usually do at letting off some of those fireworks, if that can continue, it's wonderful.
And I can't get over the number of people. I mean, an estimated 10 to 12,000, you can see that, but then it's, while another 15,000 more will view from around, view the fireworks from various locations throughout Wakefield and surrounding area. That's a lot of people. That's great.
It's a wonderful family event.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gone on for many years, and certainly something I think that the community truly appreciates.
I sat there in my living room watching.
Okay.
I move approval of new business item E.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Terry, for putting that together. And new business I is a resolution in opposition to General Assembly Bill Senate 640, entitled An Act Relating to Towns and Cities, ordinances that would prohibit municipalities from enacting ordinances that are more restrictive than environmental regulations set by DEM and CRMC, and Senate 672 and its companion bill, House 5425, entitled An Act Relating to Towns and Cities, the Department of Environmental Management jurisdiction that would empower DEM as the central review agency for land development and subdivision proposals, as further described in a memorandum from the Director of Planning to the Town Manager dated March 20th, 2013, and entitled Legislative Proposals Concerning Regulations of Other Wastewater Treatment Systems and Wetland by State Agencies and Local Communities. So it's Senate 640 and Senate 672 and House 5425. Steve?
Vin Murray has provided the council with a very detailed memorandum relative to these three bills. In short form, the bills would take away the municipality's ability to have regulations relative to the placement of on-site wastewater treatment systems from the biologically defined edges of wetlands. Currently, South Kingstown has a setback requirement of 150 feet, where the state regulation is at 100 feet. If either of these or any of these three bills were to be adopted, potentially the town would lose that ability. I want to make it clear that the 150 feet requirement is a requirement which says that they can go to the zoning board and ask for relief. The relief may come with specific stipulations in terms of the type of system that's installed, but the zoning board has the ability, working in concert with the Conservation Commission, to deal with less than 150 feet as long as there's protection for the community. We think that this is an important self-government right to be able to protect groundwater within the community, and one that should be preserved. And we would recommend the council provide opposition to each of these bills. We do understand that the legislative intent is to provide uniform regulations to allow for a more business-friendly state. However, we do not think that dealing with this issue, which really deals extensively with communities that have groundwater that needs to be protected for drinking supply purposes, we do not see that this is a regulation which has to have a uniform state provision. So we'd ask the council to oppose these bills as presented in the memorandum of March 20th.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions here at the table?
I hate to ask a
Carol?
question, but I have to. What type of systems would you say would be allowed in a 100-foot setback? If we keep it the way it is with the 150-foot setback and someone applies for relief from that, what type of system would?
Most likely advanced tech systems, which would be denitrification systems, would be the rule. One of the things, too, is sometimes it's not just how far the septic system is going to be from the edge of the wetland. It may also be how far the house is set back from the front line at the street. Because in many cases, a developer may wish to use the town's regulations on the setback from the road as a means of why they can't stay away from the wetland. What the Conservation Commission and Zoning Board is able to do is to look at it and say, well, if you get a variance and you move the house forward, and we'll give you a variance to move it 20 feet closer to the road than what the setback allowance is, then you can move the septic system 20 feet further away from the wetland. Or they can put specific performance conditions on the type of septic system that's there. They can work with the developer rather than having it as a pass-fail situation. And I think that we're able to be more creative in terms of working with the developers to be able to protect our environment. And that's what the intent is. Our intent isn't to simply say we want to have an exclusive ability to say no to anybody within 150 feet. What we're saying is, if you're going to be within 150 feet, you may have to meet special terms and conditions, or we may want to look holistically at the entire development and how it fits on the lot that you want to develop. And in some cases, we may say we don't agree to the setback and that the lot really is deemed unbuildable. We'll have to deal with those aspects as to, if we're going to do that, on what type of liability exposure the town picks up. But we've worked with this for many years. I think we should be able to continue to do specific reviews on each of those lots rather than just simply having it as a pass-fail with the state regulation.
I agree with you, Steve. I just think in light of our earlier meeting, Representative Dickinson was stating that there's, quite a bit of support for these bills up at the State House, and if, if this uniform code of, throughout the state regarding these wetlands and setbacks is what they're looking for, is there a way to approach it differently and say, if you had a certain type of denitrification system, and I don't even claim to be close to any kind of expert on this, I'm relying on you, but could you have a level of distance depending on what kind of system you were putting in, like for 100 feet, maybe it could be denitrification. Any other system has to be 150 feet. Is there any way, I guess, what I'm saying to you, that we could work with them rather than just, them coming back with this 100-foot setback and we're stuck with it?
I'm not sure the DEM is going to be wedded to the 100 feet. If, in fact, the legislation was passed, what the legislation does is it vests responsibility in DEM looking at their own regulations to determine whether or not their regulations are substantive enough. So it could well be that what we would need to do is to explain to DEM why the statewide regulation should be more reflective of the actions that we take.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a secondary position that should be taken. I think that from a home rule perspective, we should take the posture that the town should be able to control development within its community.
And I'm wondering, are they really advocating for more regulation by just adding another agency in the list of people that a developer or of any property would have to go through? What I think they're trying to do is make it easier to develop property, but is that really what they're doing? Are they just adding another layer of bureaucracy to this whole thing?
Well, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into the placement of the wastewater system than just the setback from the, because it may well be that what you want to do is to reduce the square footage of the house and reduce the number of bedrooms as a means of reducing the size of the field that's going to be established. So there's many things that the Conservation Commission, in conjunction with the Zoning Board, would be evaluating as long as we have that flexibility.
Right.
But is there a fallback position that we'll have to take if that legislation is passed? Absolutely, yes. But I think that the first position that we should take is to preserve the existing autonomy that the town has in terms of being able to exceed that 100-foot.
So you're looking for a resolution on page 3?
That's correct. We're asking.
So you want, where is it? In this thing? Oops, sorry. I move that the South Kingstown Town Council hereby directs the town clerk to provide correspondence to the state Senate President and Speaker of the House, our local legislators, and members of the Senate Committee on Agriculture and the Environment and House Judiciary Committee, indicating opposition of the municipality to Senate Bills S0640, S0672, and H5425, based on the discussion and findings as presented in the document.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Which brings us to any other comments for the good of the order before we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And I just want to state that that coyote race is coming up, so anyone who's going to participate in the Broad Rock Coyote Chase, get your applications in. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and we are adjourned at 10:25.